Hey, what is up, mortals? It is Diana here. And before we get into today's video, there's something I like to say. I'd like to let you all know that we have a merch store. Some of the items in it are only available for a limited amount of time. So if you're interested, go into the description and check it out. Each purchase helps us make more content. Secondly, if this video hits 300 likes by the end of the week, we will continue this What If. Thirdly, if you didn't know, only 41.3% of you guys are subscribed to us. So please hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon. Now, with that out of the way, let's get into the story. He no longer registered that All Might and Bakugo were there. Deku's body was still. It was uncanny, like a corpse standing straight. His petrified state didn't last long. He began moving and breathing again almost instantly. It started with a slight tremble and a few slow, short, shallow, stilled inhales. His mind kept pace, following the same trend as his body. Midoriya's thoughts ceased to exist, no different from the unoccupied eyes of the normal. Those eyes. The memory embossed itself in his brain as his fleeting intakes of oxygen started. It felt like hours, but it couldn't have taken longer than 20 seconds for things to get worse. They won't go away. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. His severe and shaky gasping became exponentially unpleasant. Those eyes were empty. No matter how much air he tried to take in, it wasn't enough. His body was possessed. Trembling turned irregular, inflexible, and agitated. They were filled with nothing. The smell of sea and garbage turned fetid as if someone sprayed perfume into his nose. Not even nothing existed in them. The cool breeze that once comforted and refreshed him now frightened and made him flinch. Those eyes, the sweet sound of waves and his companions' voices blended together to pummel his eardrums. They were completely absent of life. The calm topography was now a nightmare, hellscape with colors too vibrant, and every movement a dizzying threat. His head was light. Everything spun, yet stayed still all at once. Help, please. Heart palpitations threatened to tear his body apart. Run, run, run! Izuku was imprisoned, his body now a dungeon and his mind the persecutor. Midoriya felt a latch onto his shoulder. The sudden and unfamiliar feeling terrified him. He jumped away, face contorted in unspeakable fear and paranoia, and one for all coursing through his veins. Izuku turned around slowly to face whatever he had touched. All Might? Midoriya's voice was hesitant, shaky, uncertain, and sounded like it was struggling through unshed tears. His body quaked uncontrollably. He was a deer caught in headlights and barely able to speak.
Midoriya, my boy, it's all right. Just breathe.
All Might instructed Izuku on how to breathe. Slow, steady, deep breath. Hold, exhale, repeat. It took a couple of hours for Midoriya to be okay enough to head home. He wasn't alright though. He was still anxious, jittery. Izuku wasn't mentally all there for the moment. All Might explained that it seemed as though he was experiencing a panic attack and suggested they hold off on training on Midoriya's first quirk for the time being. Katsuki brought his frazzled friend back home and explained what happened to Inko. He left out the part about One for All and told her Midoriya discovered another way to use his quirk that focused on and increased the boost to his physical strength. The entire time Izuku kept One for All activated, subconsciously using it as a security blanket. Once Kachan left, he walked off to his room in a zombie-like state. He was exhausted and his mind felt cloudy. Midoriya turned off the light, closed his door, and gingerly climbed into bed before passing out. The next morning, Izuku felt much better. He was still a bit anxious, but he was miles better than he had been the night before. After Midoriya finished getting ready, in between his mom's constant questioning of if he would be alright going back to school, the emerald-eyed boy and his blonde friend made their way to school. The two didn't say much. Katsuki didn't want to accidentally throw his friend into another attack, and Izuku was more than comfortable with the calming silence between them. When the duo got to class, they were bombarded by the others. The first to approach was Ochako, closely followed by Ida, and then the rest of the 1A. Bakugo ignored the group and went to his seat, while Midoriya tried his best to humor everyone and answer as many of their questions as possible. Ida raised his concerns about everyone crowding around their recovered classmate, but he was quickly brushed off and assured it was fine. Uraraka was happy to see her new friend safe, but something felt off. He seemed a little more reserved than usual. He was by no means a boisterous person, but he usually talked with more confidence around the class. She didn't have much time to dwell on it. The students quickly dispersed once Aizawa entered the room and started morning announcements. The first announcement came as a shock to everyone. A new student was being introduced to the class. Most of the group was stunned silent when their former classmate Minoru Mineta walked in and vowed that he would do all he could to be a proper hero before taking his once vacant seat. The only one who didn't react was Bakugo, who didn't remember the small boy. He continued on with his announcements for a while. Now, on to the important stuff. Last class was an important ordeal, but your fight isn't over. Midoriya's heart stopped. This was the last thing he needed to hear, especially after the events that transpired yesterday. No. This can't be happening. Not again. I can't breathe. Midoriya's thoughts quickly swirled and distorted in his head, becoming the beginning of a typhoon that would destroy his day. Try as he might, he couldn't remember the breathing technique All Might had advised him to use at the last time he had an attack. In front of him, Katsuki's body went completely stiff upon hearing the announcement. You don't mean... Bakugo trailed off, not wanting to finish his thought. The class waited for further elaboration. UA Sports Festival is fast approaching. Izuku and Katsuki collectively sighed in relief, while the rest of the class shouted in disbelief at how ordinary the second announcement was. A few students protested the idea for Aizawa to emphasize how important it was for the UA to hold the festival. Now calm, Midoriya noticed the sound of the desk behind him, grinding against the floor. He looked back to see Mineta's entire body shaking and fighting the urge to protest along with the other students. Aizawa finished the rest of his explanation, and the tone for the class was set. Everyone was determined to win. After 4-period classes ended and lunch started, the students became rowdy and excited. Tenya, Izuku, Katsuki, and Tsuyu were standing around, idly talking about the excitement that swept up the entire class when Ochako rammed herself into the conversation. With a look of determination so extreme, it was almost laughable. She told the group that they should do all their best, and went around telling everyone she was going to crush it all at the festival. Almost everyone went along with her enthusiasm, except for the usually standoffish students and Midoriya. That last one caught her attention. Oh, hey Deku, what's wrong? She leaned in close to a somewhat spaced-out boy with her mouth slightly agape in curiosity and worry. Izuku backed up a bit and reassured her that he was fine and just had a lot he was thinking about. As the usual group of 4 torted their way to the cafeteria, the topic of why Uraraka wanted to become a hero came up. She sheepishly explained that it was for the money, and elaborated on her family's financial situation. Their conversation was interrupted, however, when All Might stepped in front of them and asked Midoriya if he'd accompany him for lunch. He quickly extended the offer to Bakugo, but was shot down. Katsuki didn't see the point in tagging along if the topic didn't concern him. Izuku split off from the rest and followed his mentor to the teacher's break room. The remaining 3 hurried off to the lunchroom. Ochako wondered aloud why All Might would have taken Deku aside to have lunch with him. Tenya suggested that All Might could have taken a liking to their friend, and Katsuki confirmed it. He told the 2 of them that after the USJ incident, Deku learned a new way to use his quirk that made it similar to All Might. Unbeknownst to them, Shoto Todoroki overheard the entire conversation. Before we get back into the story, I would like to say we've got a second channel called Anime Deep Dive. Anime Deep Dive goes over the hard facts of the anime presented. Now, in case you guys didn't know, we have a third channel called Anime Theory. Anime Theory mainly focuses on a large variety of mind-boggling anime theories. If you're interested in content like this, please go check the description below or click the icon in the top right corner. Now, with that out of the way, let's get back into the story. The break room was quiet for a while. All Might thought over his words again and again before he felt comfortable speaking. He didn't want the young man to feel guilty about what he had to say or to ignite another panic attack. He gave out a sigh and began. He explained that his time limit was cut down to an hour after transferring his quirk and stretching himself too thin during the fight with Nomu. This came as a shock to Izuku, and he apologized, only to get reprimanded for doing so. All Might continued, telling Midoriya that the real reason he wanted to talk was regarding the sports festival and how they would prepare leading up to it. He explained to Midoriya that this was the time for him to get noticed, and as such, he had to make a grand first impression and explain to the world, "I am here." Izuku's body language became more and more downcast. He sunk into his chair as All Might talked. Finally, seeing the change in demeanor, All Might asked him what was wrong. "I can't even use my quirk right now. How am I supposed to make an impression like that and become the next symbol of peace?" Izuku dared not to look up as he spoke. He was too scared. He didn't know what to expect from his new mentor. "Midoriya, my boy, there's no need to be so hard on yourself right now. We'll work on that together and figure something out. For now, focus on becoming better with One for All. We'll be training for the 2 weeks leading up to the sports festival." He comforted and reassured his next successor for the rest of the meeting. Toshinori knew the situation was grim, but he hadn't realized Izuku had begun to doubt himself so much. He felt foolish for not considering it. The rest of the day went off without much issue, until the class tried to leave. When Uraraka opened the door, she was surprised to see a vast sea of students. Ochaku and Minoru were the only ones to verbally express their confusion and disbelief. Bakugo stepped in front of them. "They're scoping out the competition round cheeks, 'cause we're the ones who survived the villain attack." Kachan gritted his teeth while bringing up the villain attack. It started out great, bashing villains with Deku and shitty hair, but it didn't last. He was useless during the actual fight, and it nearly cost him the only person he saw as an equal. He almost lost his closest friend. Maybe his only friend. The thought of that soured his mood. He didn't feel like dealing with what he thought of as NPCs. "Move it, side characters! We got shit to do, and you're in the way." His face settled into a calm scowl as he spoke. His classmates, on the other hand, began to freak out and yell at him. Ida and Midoriya, in particular, reprimanded him for his behavior. Tenya flat out told Katsuki that he couldn't go around calling people side characters, and Izuku added that the two of them had already talked about him brushing off people he didn't know. Their protests went unacknowledged, as Bakugo stared into the mostly unmoving crowd. "It's true. We came to get a look, but you sure are modest. Are there Hero Corps students like this one?" A student with a purple mop of hair pushed its way through to the front of the crowd. The owner said hair towered over the others in the horde as he spoke. He continued to orate, issuing a challenge and making it more than plain to see that he was after one of the currently occupied sports in the hero department. When he finished his speech, the tired-looking student and Katsuki bored into each other's eyes, neither moving or talking. The area stayed quiet for a while, putting everyone on edge. The tension that began to building up didn't last long, though. "Hey, I'm from Class 1B next door. I heard you guys fought some villains. Wanted to find out more, but all I see is this arrogant bastard." A gray-haired boy screamed at Bakugo and the rest of the 1A from the crowd. The explosive blonde gathered one thing from the new angry face: the implication that Katsuki might think himself better than the others after that experience. Kachan's eyes turned wide, his brows furrowed, and his face contorted into a horrific glower. Instinctively, small explosions set off in his palms, and his head turned to the 1B student. Deku preemptively took hold of his friend. Bakugo was about to burst, and he didn't want anyone to get hurt or in trouble. Katsuki let off a noticeable explosion. Nothing big enough to do damage, but it was close. "What the hell is your problem, Lady Lashes? You got a tin for brains or something, you asshole? Say something like that and I'll kill you, dumbass. You got no right trying to say that I think I'm better than you because of what happened. You got no idea what it's like, watching helplessly while you think your friend is being killed. If you think you're proud of going through that shit, then drop dead. Your face makes me sick." As if to emphasize the last part of his speech, Katsuki stuck out his tongue and made a gaggling noise. Throughout his entire fit, Bakugo struggled against Midoriya and set off one explosion after another until he was able to compose himself again. The disruption caused even more people to gather, including the two boys' teachers. Black King and Eraserhead dispersed the blockage in the hallway and took their respective students aside to be reprimanded. Midoriya and Uraraka decided to wait for Bakugo while Ida left for home. The two chatted for a while. They didn't talk about anything specific. Mostly they were just waiting for Kachan and enjoy each other's presence. When Bakugo finally arrived, the trio left off to the train station. The 2 weeks between Bakugo's temper tantrum and the sports festival were spent preparing for the event. Everyone got ready for it in their own way, but not as strenuously as Deku. Whenever he wasn't at school or doing homework, he was training with all might. Throughout the entirety of the 2 weeks, they worked on Midoriya's newfound anxiety issues. During the second week, they started battle training. The day of the sports festival finally arrived. The two made a considerable amount of progress considering the limited amount of time they had to work with. Now, it was time to put all that effort to the test. Everyone sat in their respective prep rooms for the sports festival. Chatter and excitement filled Class 1A's room. Everyone was calming their nerves in their own way. Midoriya sat by his lonesome, doing some breathing exercises alongside Mineta. Ida took charge of the class to make sure everyone was ready. Uraraka chatted with the largest group of people that formed in the middle of the room. Bakugo sat and listened to Kaminari ramble on about whatever. Thank you all for watching the video to the end. Now there are a few more things that I'd like to go over before the video ends. On the behalf of We Are the Celestials, I'd like to thank the writer of the video and the editors for the video. Their details will be in the description. If you're a voice actor, editor, or writer, or you're interested in becoming one of those, go to the Discord that's in the description of this video and hit up the head of one of those areas. We're always looking for members to join us. That's it from us for today's video. So thank you all for watching, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you're interested, and hit that like button if you like the video. Until next time, peace out, mortals! Have a fantastic day!